Hello and welcome to the Inquisitorial Archive. My name is Kevin Rourke and today I'm going to be talking about the 6th session of my ongoing Only War campaign. Well, last we left our heroes, they had been reassigned to a new outpost in the mountainous terrain. They were under new commander, they'd just begun to settle in. Their new commander met them the next day and he had an assignment for them. They began to, as I discussed last time, started making connections with some of the different elements in there. But they were given the mission when the leader was talking. He gave them their briefing for the mission over a meal that he cooked himself. So they were immediately liking this guy way better than the previous commanders they had had. This guy was cooking, you know, pasta and with fried tomatoes and stuff for them. They were like, okay, this is great. We never treated this good before. So it's like, okay. They're pretty happy with this. But for the moment he's sending them on a mission to a outlying village which was near a pass. It wouldn't be very much good for large orc forces to sneak through. But there's a Vox unit there that their own microbeads wouldn't be able to get far enough. You need a pretty powerful Vox to send with the mountainous terrain. So they're like, okay. They're happy enough to go there, you know. They have to accept the mission anyway. But I'm pretty happy to go there, and he gives them the requisition gear that you should gain for the mission. The mission should only take 2 weeks. They're just going to be sitting there, basically babysitting. If he does warn them, if a significant orc force does show up, it will take time to get there, and more than likely, if it's a significant orc force, backup won't be there quickly enough. But they don't have the forces to reinforce such a strategically unimportant location. It's somewhat important to small forces, but it's just not. They don't have the capacity to get through a large enough force that they'd be terribly worried about. But they still want to watch it just to be sure. And if an orc force does try and bottleneck through there, that they'll be able to deploy force in time to stop a significant numbers getting through. It's like they get their they are given their list of requisition equipment as you do for the mission, which includes a crack grenade launcher with 2 clips of crack ammo, and a pair of magnoculars, and just 1 or 2 other little bits to get. Oh, they're also supposed to be getting some silver marks, so they were going to be put up in the local inn, and they had this money if they needed to buy anything off the locals, but everything would have to get receipts for. You know, they'd have to. The Imperium's not just going to pay for them to go off and get drunk all weekend. So it's like, okay, they're happy enough with going out. They go down to the Department of Munitorum place. Unfortunately, the logistics role did not go well. Not only did they not get any of the equipment for their mission, which meant that they'd be relying, well, for food, they'd be relying on their rations, but they didn't get that crack grenade launcher, didn't get the magnoculars, but Commissar Bark had previously gotten, if you recall, Commissar Bark had previously gotten a pair of binoculars. So they're pretty happy with the. Well, they were pretty unhappy with this, but it was Department of Munitorum. They couldn't really do much about it. And the role had gone so badly, in fact, that Department of Munitorum requisitioned back a part of their gear. It's like, you've got to give up part of this gear. We've got new policies, new stringent things. So a week's worth of rations was taken off each of them. Bear in mind, they're going to be there for 2 weeks, so they don't have enough food for half the time they're going to be there. They have no money to buy foods off the locals. You know, the locals aren't going to let them starve, but they obviously wouldn't be too thrilled, so they're just like, well, we'll just have to send some of the guys out doing hunting. And so it's like, okay, they're deployed, but Sergeant McBrider's like, okay, well, this is Department of Munitorum. His player's like, this Department of Munitorum, I'm sure I get a receipt or something. He's like, I'm like, yeah, no, it's Department of Munitorum. You probably get a receipt when they take something off you. It's like, here you go, here's your receipt. He's like, okay, fine. And they deployed on the village. Was pretty yeah, they had a wooden palisade around it, but clearly no orcs have struck here. At least not for decades. Nobody'd seen an orc and what to do. What the players did like as well was, before they left, some of them overheard in different conversations that their squad had developed a nickname. They were called the Immortals because none of them had ever died. None of the Carmans and the PCs, nobody had ever died yet. And they'd, gone on some pretty high profile missions so far. And there's other rumours going on. Oh, that Sergeant McBrandy turned down the position of as a captain, and that they're good friends with the subsector governor, and there's all sorts of wild stories going on about them. I was like, okay, they deploy out there. They're a little bit confused, but different people have heard different stories, and they get there, they're looking around the village, like, okay, how are we going to do with this? And they're looking at the place, and the locals aren't terribly worried about, orcs, and they haven't seen any of this stuff. They've no concern. They're pretty happy that the Imperial Guard are sending guys there because they're, buying stuff with their silver marks until this squad shows up. It was a great boon for the economy while it lasted, but now the guys are showing up with no money and things. But they got showed around by the previous squad who were being sent off. I put in there's a few odd things, like there's a few local food stuff which they didn't really get to try that much of because they had no money, so they had apple cakes, and all the furniture in was made of stone for some reason, which nobody ever inquired about. It was weird. They're like, it's another world, they could have furniture made of stone. Big nuts. And they also had, I saw from Game of Thrones, Milk of the Poppy, and it's a bartender said, oh, for the people who really like the Milk of the Poppy, sometimes they can enjoy the poppy, which nobody touched that stuff because everybody, it was drugs. They're pretty sure it was drugs. I'm not sure if somebody might have tried Milk of the Poppy, but that was in the mild end of stuff. But pretty soon Sergeant McBrander was like, okay, we've got to look at this place, and they want to scout out, and they're like, right, what are we going to do? They started kind of doing some clear felling of some of the trees. They did 1 or 2 patrols. They wanted to cut the trees back further. I previously said the locals were told they're not allowed to shout out because one reason they want to use the forest as a natural barrier to, if any orc forces come through, it will just further slow them down. Like, there's only a small path up to this pass. It's a very remote thing. This is why there's only one squad going. I was like, okay, they can live with this. Well, he says, okay, I want to chop this place down. Or like, oh, can we make like a bit of a watchtower? It's like, well, you don't have any materials, but some of the guys can do it with roads. Unfortunately, there was a series of really bad roads, and Corporal Jorgensen, almost died. He was himself and Trooper Love were working on setting up this thing about half an hour's walk away from the base, where like from a particular tall tree from the village, and they'd be able to look out and they'd be able to see vaguely some of these, some of the areas they want to keep an eye on. But he failed by like 4 degrees. Rerolled, failed by 4 degrees. I was like, okay, you can give me a roll to catch on to something. I think he eventually succeeded, but I described him getting really badly hurt. But I was like, yeah, that was a 10-meter drop. That'll probably kill his character. Maybe if he's lucky, just get away with some broken bone and stuff. But they haven't seen an enemy yet, so they're like, oh, they're typically being, as you do, you get a bit paranoid in the games and things. And last time they're paranoid, they're going to be attacked at court. So if they're in some village in the middle of nowhere, they know they're paranoid. They're thinking, oh, these guys are going to get us. So GM, he's lulling us into a false sense of security. We haven't been attacked by anything in a while. Like, okay. I decided to scout up by, there's a cave system. They asked some of the locals, like, oh, there's cave system. Well, we don't know how deep it goes. There's a legend that it goes down into the bowels of the planet or network, and there's an underground lake there, and beyond that there's a temple, and in the temple there's a doorway that's been closed for thousands of years. That's a gateway to hell itself. And the players are like, oh crap, that could be some kind of chaos gate. Like, out of character, like, that could be some kind of chaos gate. It could be webway portal. It could be any number of things that we don't want to deal with. By the time the first weekend in, they ran out of, they once or twice decided to forage for a little bit of food. But Sergeant McBrander's player was like, oh, I'll send you two guys, the 2 weapon specialists. You're pretty stealthy. One of these got long lads, I want you to go out for 2 hours and get us some food. And they came back with a couple of rabbits. And they were like, I kind of explained, it was like, yeah, they're going to have to move away from the village wall because none of the big game are going to be near the village. And they will have to find it. It's not like, oh, we're going to the village. Oh, there's a deer. Bang. He's like, no. Well, he wasn't thinking it would be like that. But it's like, yeah, you're going to need time to find the tracks of one and start tracking and following it. It's going to take time. It could take days, like, depends how well the guys do. But just expecting them in a couple hours to get food for all the PCs and their comrades that's a lot of work. That's a lot, you know. They're gonna have to invest some serious time in this. But they managed to lay things, and they eventually, when they were running out of food, he voxed back to command. He's like, okay, we've run out of food. And they're like, what do you mean you've run out of food? And he's like, oh, we've run out of food because the Department of Home guys took away, some of our rations, and we don't have any more. And they're like, the man on the other end's like, okay, just hold on the line. He comes back like half an hour later. He's like, I'm really sorry, but I've talked to them. They're not sending you any additional stuff. They say you have all the equipment you need to get additional supplies that that you've been trained for this. You're an Imperial Guard. He's like, your man was really apologetic. I was like, honestly, why we've got this problem? They're nobles, them having to worry about basic food. Unfortunately, the previous mission, cause Trooper Blackthrone, Medic Blackthrone, had given over. He had traded some of his rations for demolitions charges, which he used and things they set up. He had eaten through they had like a bunch of days of food of really bad food, but that was all gone. That didn't even get to this mission. So they're like, okay, crap. So then he's just having to send out Trooper Love and Jorgensen the whole time. Interesting point. Commissar Barca figured out that if he was almost came to a deal with the local innkeeper that the cigars he had taken from the court, if he traded what ones of them he had left, like these really good cigars, not the Admiral cigar, he wasn't trading that, because if he traded these, he'd get food for all the guys for the rest of their stay, like full on food. And he's like, yeah, because these are quite good cigars. He didn't go for it, which meant the guys still had to go forward and stuff. The rest of the guys didn't know. I was like, well, yeah, no, these are really good cigars, but we're still looking at, that's a lot of people to be fed, like all the meals and stuff, so that's what's going to happen. But he declined. He didn't want to give over that stuff. He wanted to hold on to it for a while. So they're like, okay, fair enough. But one of the times they were going, they went up to the cave system. They saw some boot marks, and like, well, there is what are these boot marks? They look like Imperial Guard boot marks. And I said, well, they don't look like year boots. The 13 Kinog Grenadiers, they don't look like year boots. But the Imperial Guard isn't exactly uniform. He's like, but would the group who were here before us, were they Kinog? And they're like, yeah, they were Kinog Grenadiers. Like, okay, it's unlikely they came. They're like, damn, these look like these are boots. Like, they're back to villagers, and they're saying, well, what did the villagers wear boots? I was like, well, some of the villagers wear boots, the adults wear boots, but the kids and the teenagers, they just have like moccasins and stuff. They're growing too fast for them to be affording buying them boots the whole time, so they got to wear moccasins. I'm like, okay, these are definitely moccasins. Like, no, I was like, okay. Came back. Unfortunately, they used up so much time trying to clear fell some of the land around, so they have a killing zone, and they'd spent so much time trying to scavenge food that they couldn't like just have it rotated for somebody to watch at night and stuff. They were inside in the inn when I don't think they'd gone to bed yet, but some of them had. They're getting ready to go to bed. Oh no, it wasn't that. It was I had said that every 8 hours they had to make radio contact with base. There's a bit of a grace period for like an hour, but after this point, if they haven't made contact, they haven't broadcasted in, that somebody will be sent. And if they're still okay and nothing's happened, they're gonna have hell to pay, because they should be, they don't have to be manning the damn thing the whole time. But they still have to, they still have to make contact. Because this is owned by the locals, but they have to make radio contact with base and use, different codes to make sure everything's alright. They're like, okay. And the interesting thing that happened is he went out, he's like, okay, it's the middle of the night, like you're all like really tired because you're, middle of the night, he goes out and he goes into this building. There's this kind of a stairs, and it's on the second story of this place, but he goes and he feels a wind. He sees the window's been broken, and he goes in. Somebody has cut around the lock with a very sharp weapon. Like, they obviously didn't care about making this place look like it hadn't been attacked. Afterwards, they went in. The Vox was destroyed. He went back, ran back. He basically went back to the inn. He's like, guys, everyone get up. We need to deal with this. There's something going on. And everyone starts putting on their equipment and gear. And they're like, okay, they're grabbing their gear, they're putting it on. And Trooper Love and Commissar Barca sorry, not Commissar Barker, Sergeant McBrandier, they would hear the sound of something flesh being ripped and torn. And they go outside, the group goes outside to go and investigate, and they see the shapes of 3 dog-like creatures, quite large though. Those succeed enough in their awareness checks, Also, these things look like their skin had been taken off. You could see the flesh, you could see the muscles, and they had horrible large fangs. These things are huge. These things are the size of like cows, and these things have like spiked ridges down back along their spine. These things look horrifying. You need to make a fear check. And they, unfortunately, Commissar Barker and Sergeant McBrandier both failed, and they ran back in. And I think Trooper Love did as well, but he got the result where you don't have to, you don't approach him. He had no intention of approaching him anyway. And they start, he has no intention of approaching him anyway. And the guy starts sending down a hail of fire. And they saw there was some kind of man behind them as well, who was covered in spikes, quite lithe in appearance, quite they were moving quite fast towards the guys, and I was like, okay, this is where we're in trouble. But they closed the door and they sit up in the window and start firing out. They lay down their firing line, and they managed to take down, I think they managed to injure some of the dogs, and they managed to kill this figure. But they said, okay, door closed, you know, they wait to close. Actually, they're shooting through the door. They wait till these things were getting pretty close, and the closed door was like, they can't come through now. But unfortunately for them, these creatures have phase, and the guys knew out of character. A lot of the guys knew out of character. Like, wait, no, I know these sound like warp beasts. Like, it sounds like we're being attacked by Dark Elder. These sound like warp beasts. Wait, I mean, they just literally jumped through the wall. They didn't like smash through the wall. They jumped through the wall. It's like, yeah, that's exactly what you're seeing. That's exactly what's happening. And they're like, what? They don't do that. It's like, well, obviously they're in the latest codex, because they do now. And they jump through the walls, and the guy's like, oh crap. But Trooper Love turns out the flamer. He doesn't care. He's terrified. They're all terrified. They don't care. As far as they're concerned, I want to, you know, he doesn't care if he burns down the inn, so he just shoots the flamer. He's burning something. Some will just disappear into nothingness. And Sergeant McBrandier finally succeeds in his check to basically regain his composure and come back into the fight. And he goes, okay, I'm not. The player's like, I don't want to look. I don't like the guy's thinking, what the hell is he doing? He ran away, he broke. He picks up his rifle, which he left upstairs, and he comes charging down with the rifle. He charges down the stairs. He leaps off the stairs, chainsaw in hand. He's making a athletics check for this. And I said, okay, when he's seen the athletics check, he's like, okay, I'm going to give you an additional plus 10 to hit, because you kind of got higher ground when it's a bit unexpected. And I'm going to give you a small bonus to damage. It's like, okay, cool. And it's like, you know, and this, you know, kind of makes up for his character running away. Comes out Barker similarly passed the check now, and they're like, later on, nobody asks it, but they're saying, if anybody asks, it's like, oh no, we were moving back to draw them into our fire line, draw them into the flamer. That's exactly what we were doing. So it comes down, chainsaw, chops through the thing, knocks it out, but they managed to kill these things, although they're greatly shaken up by these things. They got a few standing corruption points from seeing these things, but they heard something outside, and as they looked outside, they could see there was some kind of vehicle with very sharp edges. Looks like it was covered in blades, and some individuals. And one of them said, these ones seem to have. They said in fairly accented low Gothic, these ones seem to have some fighting spirit. Perhaps they might do in the pits. At this point, I turn around to players and they're like, oh yeah, guys, I know it's an only war campaign. You guys all know what these things are, even your characters don't. But if you don't fend them off, if they take you alive, that's where the campaign's going. I don't want to go that way, but, you know, gotta be realistic. And the guys are like, oh crap. So they were like, well, screw this. So they put the guns like, right, firing line. Sergeant Prepared's like, okay, everybody get their guns. Roll initiative. One of these guys comes charging towards him. One initiative had like just flat out run. So it's pretty hard to hit him, because when you run, you take a -20. They take a -20 to shoot at you. But it seems to have two like whips that are made just out of blades. They're razor flails. I'd say it to the guys at the time, they're like, what the hell is this? Some had one or two inklings, but these guys just think it is lady comes charging towards them, and behind her as well is a group of like 6 Dark Elder Kabbalah warriors, one with a splinter cannon. So Sergeant Commander's like, oh, you get them orders. So it's like, yeah, kill that damn thing. And everybody piles on the firepower. This thing actually closed within pretty good range because it's fast, and the guys are like, if we don't take this down, we're dead. I mean, one of the guys shoots, gets a few hits in, she dodges, and another guy's like shoots, but she only has one dodge. You know, I need somewhere to go for the bad guys later on, because this probably won't be the last time they fight Dark Elder. But just literally through the combined fire of the entire squad, they managed to take him down. The guy's like, oh crap, we didn't do great in the initiative. It's like, oh, I did the worst. And then I turn around and go, you didn't do the worst. The worst was the Kabbalah warriors who rolled a 1. You might have noticed they've done nothing yet. And they're like, oh my god, they did a high five. They're like, screw that. We all beat the damn, Dark Elder with their natural trait agility. So I'm like, okay, first thing I'm going to do is, unfortunately, by shouting and giving out the orders, Sergeant Grenadiers drawing attention to himself. So the guy with the splinter cannon unloads, gets ungodly well. The shots are coming in on the head. So unfortunately, Sergeant McBrandier is getting the shot. He's getting the first 2 shots in the head. There's no damage on these things is not nice. Unfortunately, he had to burn a fate point, and he went down. I said, okay, you're going down, but the real unfortunate thing is he's only got 1 fate point, so he's down to 0 now. So we're all kind of like, we're like, damn, he's kind of a cool character, but if there's no risk in these things, then the game's a lot less fun. I've been in games where the GM just kind of the GM lets you off a lot of the time, kind of thing, but it's not great. You start to get frustrated with the damn thing, because the reward isn't as good. I think that's why a lot of guys are enjoying Only War, because it's hard. When you do something, it means something. But then the rest of the Kabbalah wars shooting at them with the splinter rifles. I might heard them, but I was like, okay, well, he's gone down. The rest of the guys, they've taken a few injuries and things, but he's gone down. And I was like, okay, the rest of the guys kept firing. They said, we're taking down that guy with the splinter cannon anyway. We're taking down that guy with the big gun. So I'll start firing in. Managed to pepper him with shots. I said, okay, you're not really going to be able to do anything. But I said to Sergeant McBride's player, you're not really going to do anything, but we're going to say that Trooper Black Throne, because it wasn't there that session, Trooper Black Throne heals you up a bit. And you're still on your minuses. You're still in that negative state. You're barely alive, but you can use your reaction to get them maneuver, because that extra 4 damage is vital for the guys at this stage. So he's like, okay, Grant. He goes, yeah, he's kind of cheering them on. He's like, kill them all, man, get every last one of them. And they firing into shots. They managed to do enough damage that basically whoever the commander was on top of that, the Dark Elder Raider, was just telling them that they'd seen that these guys were dragging on board some of the locals. They just said, just leave them. They wanted their quick. They wanted to get nice cheap victories, but these humans are clearly putting over too much of a fight. They're like going, screw that. Let's just get out of here. We've got what we came for. We've got enough here, and these guys are clearly a bit better equipped and geared than we were expecting. We can come back another time with more force, something like that. Don't know exactly the reasoning, but these guys pulled back after they take enough damage, and the player's like, oh, screw this, and like, Trooper Jorgensen takes out the sniper rifle, and he's like firing away. Oh, I think he jammed in the middle of the fight, and he was like, oh god damn it. He was so frustrated because his sniper rifle jammed. He's like, oh, I'll take out my deadline, I'm shooting at them. And he's like, god damn it. But he shoots at it, and he actually does a little bit of damage to the vehicle, and the guys are all firing him, but they're not going to do too much damage. And I actually remember, because I hadn't seen in the entry the effects of the hollow field. I'd actually forgotten about it, that you take a -20 to hit them, so that's pretty significant. But the guys, they did actually want to do structure type damage, but they weren't able to take it down. And the guys were like, god damn it, if we had that crack grenade launcher, that would actually, this is, a light vehicle, that might have actually had enough to do something. I'm kind of sitting there like, yeah, kind of. But after a while, they see some movement in the trees later on, once the Dark Elder are gone. and they see some stormtroopers and the stormtroopers, you know, they do the before we had flashbang, but since they were in a new area, the guy's like, well, maybe obviously we should have a different call sign. And one of the guys jokingly said Jiminy Cricket, so like, yeah, Jiminy Cricket. I was like, who expects that? Like, especially if you're orcs aren't gonna get that, and it's 140,000, why not? It's funny. And after a while they sent in more guys to reinforce and do cleanup. Unfortunately they had a head count, and about 3 dozen villagers were missing and unaccounted for. So the guys in character weren't happy. They were not happy campers. But eventually, like I said, more troops show up. They've got like a platoon of guys walking around the place. And there's this one guy who does not wear any military markings. He's kind of ordering the guys around, and they're all doing what he's saying. And yeah, he eventually comes over and he starts, you know, he's saying, you're going to have to hand over your weapons and stuff. And, you know, Sergeant McBrandy is kind of looking like, I don't know. He's kind of giving a look like, I don't know who this guy is. He's got no official rank. I don't know what sort is. And I just had the stormtrooper sergeant behind us, kind of like, you know, giving him a look and like, do what he says. Like, okay, out of character, everyone knew what the hell was going on, or had an inkling of what kind of where this kind of guy came from. But this guy starts briefing him. He starts to brief him. He's like, okay, what the hell happened? And he's like, one of our first questions he asked, like, they're like, oh, you know, we were attacked. We did our best to repel them. He's like, okay, I've looked over your equipment and there seems to be some discrepancies in the inventory I've taken. Where's your grenade launcher with the crack grenades? And they're like, actually we didn't get that. In fact, we didn't get any of the equipment we were supposed to get from mission. Department of Uniform took away most of our rations, so we had to spend a lot of the mission actually foraging for food as opposed to trying to reinforce the base, which they had been reinforcing, and they showed records that they had actually reinforced. And he's like, right. He's like, and do you take, you know, he basically asked the group, he's like, you know, he's asking pretty flat out, he's like, do you think this is actually, you know, screwed over your chance to defend the base effectively? And they're like, you actually had a lot of players going, oh, it's been drilled into us, we don't say anything bad about the Department of Uniform, so we're saying nothing. Except the commissar goes, yes, in my opinion it did damage our effectiveness. So everyone's like, yeah, no, what the commissar said, I agree with the commissar, he's a member of the Department of Uniform, I'm just agreeing with what he said, you can't get me for that. And I was like, okay, do you know the name of this Department of Uniform officer who denied you the essential equipment for your mission? Clearly not impressed. And the guys are like, you know, the guys stay quiet for a second. And Sergeant McBrander's player is like really playing up to his character, so he's just like, no, but I have a receipt. And he takes your seat off him, takes down the information. It's like, right, well, I'll deal with this. When they eventually got back to base, they heard rumors that one of the Department of Uniform officers had been hastily redeployed and actually was escorted out by you know, stormtroopers. Didn't know anything beyond that, but the guys were glad for a little victory, and you know, they had managed to, although they had taken a bit of a beating in doing so, they had managed to repel the enemy. Unfortunately, it would have been a lot easier if they had that crack grenade launcher, but they didn't have it this time. And that I think the real victory was for the you know, dealing with the Department of Uniform guys, because some of the guys were like, I don't care if we get in trouble, I want to get him. You know, he's actually after screwing us over a bunch of innocent people. I don't care if they send me to the gallows. You know, we can be sneaky about this. We should be able to get away with this if we're smart. You know, we should be, you know, if we want to get back at him. But they didn't have to deal with that. And Sergeant McBrandy, unfortunately, because he got a crit to the head, I don't know if it's just after the session, but because he got a crit to the head, I said, well, you know, actually we should do something with that. I said, your man, the Inquisitorial guy, though they never mentioned the word Inquisition, but out of character, the Inquisitorial guy had obviously sorted out for him. I said that I gave him a choice. He could either have a big kind of boxy bionic eye just kind of here, or he could have that a chunk of his head was now, he looked like Arnie from Terminator 2, just had the big R, you know, Kano from Mortal Kombat, you know, the glowing red bionic guy. He's like, yeah, no, I'll go for that. That actually, I prefer that option. It sounds kind of cool, makes this guy more intimidating. Now he's actually going off and buying the disturbing voice talent now for that. So because his voice box has been all messed up after the damage, because of the poisons and the splinter rounds, they had to cut off all the to save his life, to cut off this stuff, and he got a bionic in place. You don't automatically get bionics in Elderly War. I give it a special occasion because it was cruel. But I actually kind of played up like that the rumors around the guys had gotten better. He's like, you know, some people are that's like, oh, I heard that. Did you hear? I heard. Did you hear about Sergeant McBrander and his squad? I heard that. You know the way they call them the Immortals, but I hear it's true. I heard that, you know, the devil himself came for Sergeant McBrander, and although he injured him, Sergeant McBrander and his boys, they sent him right back. You know, there's rumours going around that the guys he's great, and you know they're pretty good, but they're developing this legend, this aura about themselves, which I think the guys are really enjoying. And we left it at there, where the guys are resting and recuperating. They didn't have a solid victory. In fact, you could have called it a defeat, but it was against the odds, and they did better than expected. So Sergeant McBrander was promoted to Master Sergeant, and they were given some medals. They were all given the local version of the Honorifica Imperialis, which basically means they all have a +10 bonus to resist fear checks, which everyone's delighted with, because they're getting really sick of, you know, failing those damn checks, because willpower is tremendously expensive, because it's got the willpower and psyker aptitudes. But because he'd been so badly injured, he managed to get the Bedanian Crimson. There's 1 or 2 little medals given out, which you guys are pretty happy with. But that's where our adventures left off last Saturday. I'm looking forward to tell you about the next ones. See you again. Goodbye.